So, welcome to the Anatomy's new talk show. In this 10 to 12 minutes, we'll be talking about some very relevant issues, and we'll try to focus on those issues that are trying to tingling the society right now. Do you think that in today's society, in today's generation, the internet generation as we call them, is using trolling as the most powerful weapon to mudslinging against each other? Sir, how relevant is that in political scenario?
It's absolutely very relevant in a very negative way. Let me tell you one thing. The trolling is an organized bullying and crafted by certain political forces in the country, which has been used as a weapon to malign your opponents and systematically assassinate the characters. And trolling itself actually is in a very negative its connotation. It desensitizes the issues and demotivates people, and it is in many ways, when it is used as a political weapon, it actually is an obstacle for free expression in the social media. I'll tell you, if you look back, the trolling and fake news, it all started from 2013.
Okay.
It's actually, I'll tell you, it's a manifestation of Doval doctrine. Right. Mr. Doval was at the hands of FA at that time. He was now presently National Security Advisor of the government of India. But earlier, when after his retirement, I think he's perfected art, and RSS and BJP combined, they took up this, and they very systematically organized and orchestrated campaign particularly against Rahul Gandhi ji. So fake news is just part of it. Fake news, trolling, and then they use everything they used it in very effective manner in social media platforms earlier. When they were they were trying to capture power prior to 2014, they created this Frankenstein. Let me tell you one thing. They created this Frankenstein, and now the irony is this, the same Frankenstein is really threatening them. That's why now they are talking about raining on the social media. They are talking about formulating a law to curb the social media expressions. That is what we get to read in media.
So, you just said about Rahul Gandhi. So, in politics, it's or the dynasty, the dynasty politics, we have always been hearing about that. So, how hard is it for a dynasty to survive in a political scenario? Because no matter how hard he works for the society, he would always be judged.
Whether one is dynast or non-dynast, ultimately they have to come to the scrutiny of the people. They have to pass the acid test of the acceptability of the electorates. You can survive in politics when people accept you. You have to win elections and you have to get the mandate. So, just because somebody is born in some dynasty, he or she is given the mantle, that person has to prove his or her mettle. You understand? So it is ultimately a democratic process that really controls dynasty or non-dynasty, but one's survival in politics is very crucial of people's scrutiny and people's acceptance. So that you must be born. That point has to be borne in mind.
So, what about the new avatar of Rahul Gandhi ji?
See, the unfortunate part, that is what I wanted to tell you. It is not true that Rahul Gandhi all of a sudden has got a new avatar. Rahul Gandhi has always been like this. Earlier, his voice was throttled. Earlier, because of this organized trolling, because of this organized attempt and orchestrated effort to paint a different picture of Rahul Gandhi, by and large, people were having a different, opinion about Rahul Gandhi. But let me tell you one thing. Personally, I am an educated person. I am a rational person. And I have communicated, I have interacted many times with Rahul Gandhi ji. And let me tell you very honestly, I have found him to be very intelligent, very well-read, and he tries to form an opinion when he goes into the details. He goes to the details, and he is very methodical that way. So it is not that all of a sudden This is renewed, of course, there is a renewed interest in Rahul Gandhi, that's different. But this is not a new avatar. Rahul Gandhi has always been like that. But earlier, somehow, because of this success of this organized throttling and organized trolling, somehow his voice was not heard. But now that people are getting wary of the politics and the falsehood of the politics that pursued by the present regime led by Sri Narendra Bhai Modi, people are now having renewed interest in Rahul ji, and they are realizing that Rahul ji is actually a very rational leader, and he talks sense. So that is it really.
So do you think he is a capable contestant for the 2019 PM seat again?
Absolutely. The Congress party, he is going to lead the Congress party, and we are all gathering behind him. And you can see the people are realizing, because see, since 2014 or prior to that, in the run-up to the elections, Lok Sabha election in 2014, in a very organized manner, and aided and abetted by the big corporates. The big corporates pulled in their resources to see that Narendra Bhai Modi becomes a prime minister, and in the bargain, they actually created such a scenario that they painted a very wrong picture of Rahul ji. Okay. And now people are realizing, the Aam people, Aam Admi are realizing it. And we are going to the elections in 2019, and we are going headlong against this reactionary regime led by Narendra Bhai Modi.
So, sir, you just said about Narendra Bhai Modi ji. So, why do you think that before demonetization came into last year, November 9th, I guess, so Raghuram Rajan, such a competent fellow, we have been knowing about him, so he was suddenly removed from the RBI. So, why is it so? Is it a move of the incumbent government there?
You see, in retrospect, when you see Raghuram Rajan is such a economist of repute, international repute, and his name was also considered for the Nobel Prize in Economics. In retrospect, when we see that, the ruling combine, if you remember, Subramaniam Swamy was criticizing him all the while, and then his term was not renewed. As if the present government wanted to see that he goes away, because he was probably opposing, he would have in any case have opposed the demonetization, number one. And number two, if you remember, Raghuram Rajan was actually taking up with the banks, such a huge number of NPAs and all those loans that those were provided to big industrialists and corporates. So he was basically pulling up the banks, and banks were about to write off the loans, Yeah. So Raghuram Rajan was becoming very uncomfortable to the present regime. So he was sent away. And in his place, Mr. Mukesh Ambani's, I am told, brother-in-law, Mr. Urjit Patel, has been brought in. And obviously for very good reason, because Mr. Urjit Patel is the brother-in-law of Mukesh Ambani. And Mukesh Ambani and Gautam Adani, all these big corporates, and they are owning the majority of the media today. So the ruling combine would be comfortable to bring in a person like Mr. Urjit Patel. And subsequently, after Mr. Urjit Patel joins the RBI, the present government, Mr. Modi, has taken up this policy of demonetization, which is now proved to be a Himalayan blunder that has almost ruined the Indian economy.
So likewise, you said that the corporates are being favored. So are we coming back to the times when the Soviets were ruled by the oligarchs? So will it be the same days that the Soviet times?
No, see, since 2014, it is very apparent. Mr. Modi and the present government appear to be promoting only the big corporates. But then the small business, small enterprises, the traders, actually that sector which creates the maximum employment, that sector has been very systematically annihilated. So they, on one hand, the big corporates like Mr. Ambani is getting more rich, Mr. Adani is getting more rich, Mr. Tatas or whatever, Mr. Mittals and all these people are getting rich and richer. They are going up and up. Because Mr. Modi is seeing to it that they get more business abroad. He takes them along to different countries that he has visited. From all these countries, no FDI has come. But only our Indian businessmen are facilitated to do business there with the public money, the people are depositing money in their banks. And these big corporates are taking huge amount of loans from the banks here, and they never return back that loan. That is why probably demonetization, because these coffers of the banks were empty. So demonetization was probably a ploy to bring more money from the armed people, armed janta of India, to fill up the coffers of the banks.
So we all know that GST was the brainchild of the UPA government. So when it's been implemented by the present government, why this sudden criticism by Congress?
No, actually we are not criticizing GST as a concept. Indeed, the entire concept was launched or initiated by the UPA government. And it's a good thing. It will be good for the Indian economy. It will be good for each state. Let me tell you this. And GST is not something very revolutionary. GST has been implemented in many countries. But then implementation of GST in a huge and pluralistic country like India has to be implemented in a very methodical manner, in a manner that you should have an attitude of trial and error. Okay? So this concept was initiated by the UPA government, and very protracted negotiations with each state collectively and individually had taken place to make it a seamless effort. Okay? So the concept is good, but the problem is this: present NDA government, they always wanted to create a dhamaka without much of a preparation, much of homework, and much of putting the system in place. They all of a sudden decided to implement it, and without realizing the pros and cons, or without realizing that certain sections of the society would be very badly hit. That is number one. And number two, during the UPA regime, it was assured by the government then that the taxation, the incidence of tax as a single tax governing the entire country would be fixed, say maximum at 18%. But then present government has made different slabs, and the highest incidence of taxation was raised to 28%, which has affected the entire economy. And number two, they have made it, the entire process of implementation, such cumbersome that everybody is actually experiencing a lot of difficulties. And in the bargain, the small traders, small enterprises, small businessmen, marginal farmers and all these, they are having a lot of difficulties. That is, and then this employment creation activities are in a standstill.
Sir, Modi's government has promised to generate 2 crores job per year. Is it possible?
My dear friend, Mr. Modi promised a lot of things, not only creation of 2 crores of jobs every year. He promised almost the moon to the people of India. Now they try to justify the non-fulfillment of their promises at Jumla. And all these promises were forgotten by the present regime, including Mr. Modi. But coming back to jobs, it's irony that Mr. Modi gave promise to the people of India that this BJP-led government would create annually minimum 2 crores of jobs. But see the irony today, forget about creation of new jobs. Whatever jobs that people were having, even the people are getting unemployed now because of the wrong policies, economic policies of the Modi government. So it is, it is something that they are surviving on fake publicity and falsehood.
So, in the history of Indian politics, we have seen that some political forces has somersaulted and turned revisionist. So, if we say in a hypothetical scenario, if 60 years from now, if we start receiving lectures from the Kashmir separatists who are like aligning with Pakistan, if they start lecturing on nationalism to us, so how is it? So, how does it sound to you?
It's very interesting. You know, political forces, no matter how reactionary they are, they turn revisionist. Take the example of RSS. In the long history of Indian freedom struggle, RSS never aligned with Indian nationalists. They never participated. They never helped the freedom movement led by Mahatma Gandhi. But see today, in fact, there were allegations that they were aligning with the British imperialists that time. They were helping Britishers. That is there in history, that is there in many books. But today, the same RSS elements and BJP as this outer avatar, they are lecturing Indian people on nationalism. They are the ones that they turn revisionist. So I won't be surprised is Kashmiri militants today, they change their hearts and they would also talk on Indian nationalism.
Congress failed to solve the Kashmir issue. So why the foul cry now?
Congress has never failed in Kashmir issue. See, the Congress party has always tried to take the aspirations of the Kashmiri people into consideration. That is why the Congress government always tried to have a dialogue, tried to have this inclusive agenda covering the Kashmiri people and always maintain that Kashmiri people have their own aspirations. We have to handle them with kid glove and you have to consider their aspirations. The Congress tried to bring them in. And if you kindly remember that UPA government handled Kashmir's situation in such a way that problems really went down. We had democratic governments installed there. People of Kashmir participated in the democratic election process openly. But now, because of this, disruptive policy of the Modi regime, you see the situation has deteriorated in such a way. The Kashmiri people are totally alienated. They are openly citing slogans against India. Why is it? Because the political prudence is just not there in the present regime.
Are you a nationalist or a patriot?
I am 100% patriot. I am also a nationalist in the sense that I subscribe to the pluralistic nature of the Indian polity. I would give the status, I would give respect, I would also give equal importance to all the groups. I would encourage them to have their own identities and flourish. I would like to see that India is a big flower garden. Let 100 colorful flowers bloom in that garden. And how would you do it? By encouraging, by helping everybody to grow. Everybody to grow. And that is India.
So, how do you think that all these issues are being affected by the media? So, we say that the media is a kingmaker. So, how potent the media is in Indian political scenario?
See, again, I will go back to your first question. It's very unfortunate. Media obviously is a very powerful tool to continue the democratic processes. But unfortunately today, the majority of the media in India are owned by big corporates. Take the case of our senior spokesman of the party, Mr. Kapil Sibal, recently gave a press conference in Delhi. He openly, basically alleged about this Amit Shah's son's company. You know it, that majority of the electronic media, starting with Republic TV, they just blacked him out. Majority. Why? Because this media, this very powerful section of media are either owned by big corporates or are afraid of Mr. Modi because of his coercive policies. So what we would say, the media is independent. But we are thankful to that very minority section of the media that they are still taking up the cudgel on behalf of the tenets of democracy, and they are fearless. They are keeping the flag of media aloft. Thanks to them.
And as we are coming towards the crescendo of the whole thing, I just want to ask you something very off the say, if not politics, sir, where you would have been seen, like where would you see you? Is it in cinemas or is it in the papers? Where, sir?
Cinema in what way?
So as an actor, of course.
No, not at all. I would have been behind the camera, but Frank,
Okay,
but let me tell you one thing. I would have been a environmentalist because protecting our environment is something very close to my heart. Maybe I would have ended up as a social entrepreneur.
Okay. Yeah. So, sir, at last, I want to ask you. So, what's your message to the youth?
My message to the youths is this: please do not allow yourselves to be swamped by reactionary forces of this country. You are the hope for the entire society, entire country. So let us walk towards a strong India, a rational India, and a vibrant India. But while doing so, let us not be guided, let us not be influenced by the reactionary policies and programs of communal parties. We are all Indians, caste, creed, religion, language. We have our multiple identities, our diverse cultures. Try to appreciate the pluralistic nature of the Indian citizen. And let us all go. We are good at it. Nobody should be allowed to put us down.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your precious time and your valuable words. So here we are at the Anatomy, and we'll see you the next week.